We have three guests today, two different companies. We have Kelly Shore of Petals by the Shore, and she may be familiar to many of you as a participant in past Soul Flowers projects, including American Flowers Week, as one of our botanical couture designers, and also a speaker at the Soul Flowers Summit when it was in Washington, D.C. 2 years ago. We also have Tom Precht and Sarah Daken of Grateful Gardeners, and they're going to be on the second portion of our morning presentation. They are Maryland-based flower farmers who are doing some groovy things, and I'm just so thrilled that they're on today. And I would better give a shout out to Tom's parents who are on the line as well, the flower farmers from Colorado. Hi, Diana. It's a family affair today, right? That's great. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of allergies. I do not have the coronavirus, but I am going to be wiping my nose. I apologize. Okay, so today we thought we'd start with talking about strategies for Mother's Day, but it's so much more than that. And so I asked Kelly to talk about some of the things that she's doing. Kelly Shore is basically has spent her many years as a wedding and event florist. Well, guess what? Weddings are being postponed, right? So Kelly, I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Deborah. Wow, what a crazy time.
Yeah, yep, it is.
It's getting better every day, I would say, though. Every day is more hopeful.
Well, it's a Friday, so it's got to be slightly better than the rest of the week, right?
There's wine at the end of the day, so we're like a Friday.
Yeah. So Kelly, give us a snapshot of what Petals by the Shore has been up until the last, say, 8 weeks or 10 weeks. What kind of how your business was operated?
So I started in 2011 as, I had an 8-month-old and really knew I never wanted to do retail. I started out in 2000 in a small campus flower shop in Champaign, Illinois, working in retail, and that's where I got my start. And retail just wasn't something that I was attracted to. I saw how hard my boss had to work and that she could never leave. She was reliant on others to come in and pick up for her if she had any life events. And I just realized when I started my business, I didn't want that. I wanted to come and go as I pleased. I was growing a family. I was home-based. And if I wanted to take the summer off, or I, wanted to take the winter off, whatever the situation, that it worked for my lifestyle and my growing family. So retail was never on the radar for me. But are we at 8 weeks? I don't even know what we are at. 6, whatever, last month. Oh no, we're in May.
Yeah. Yep. It's been since the beginning of March, basically, right?
Yeah. I grieved for about a week. I sat on my couch. I cried every hour. Didn't know what to do. For people who don't know, I also started the Floral Source this past fall, and I was supposed to have my big sold out floral retreat in California. And I was in California when everything was happening. I still had the hope that I could follow through with it. And when San Francisco closed down, I realized I needed to go home, that it was becoming a real situation and this wasn't a joke. So I came home, sat on the couch for a week, cried, had no clue what I was going to do, as my brides started emailing and saying, we're going to postpone. That word is a blessing. Postpone instead of cancel.
Yeah.
So everything was moving so smoothly. I had event planners that were just really handling it. And I just rolled with it. Even if I was already booked on that weekend that they wanted to postpone, I was going to figure out a way to do it. It was not these couples' fault, and we were going to figure out how to make it still happen for them. So actually I had no intentions of doing retail. A friend reached out and her pastor had passed away, and she said, would you do flowers? They can't have the service. He was beloved, and his son can't even come from overseas to his funeral. So I said, absolutely. I said, let me whip something up for you. And we delivered it to his widow. And then people just started kind of reaching out and saying, there was another sympathy arrangement. And these weren't coronavirus deaths. These were just like life
Right.
happen. And then, I was talking to Sarah and Tom at Grateful Gardeners, and they were starting to have some flowers come on. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna try to sell for Easter. And so within 24 hours, I got some flowers together, made some mock-up arrangements, hit up a good friend of mine who's an amazing photographer. She luckily has a white porch, and so I don't have to go in her house. So I would just roll up in my minivan. She would bring out a stool. I had my mask on. I put the arrangement on the stool. She would shoot it. I'd put it back in the car, and we created a gallery for me to say, this is what I can sell.
I'm just laughing. It's like the contact-free photo shoot that you just found a workaround.
Yeah. But I will tell you, I was terrified when I did launch the online store, because I was so worried about what others would think, because the emotions were so high. That I think it was like the third week, so high about, there was, so many different sides about, should we be doing no contact delivery? Should, support the farms? We still have to have money to pay our bills, all these things. So I just went for it. I said, I'm not going to make a lot of money. It was really about me supporting the farms and getting the product moving, because that's what was hurting my heart so much, just seeing a very successful year for so many turn into just waste. And I knew, and I saw the 3 deliveries that I had done prior to Easter, those smiles on those faces when they answered the door. I Cloroxed, wiped the vase, set it down, ring the doorbell, and stand back. And the way that their faces changed, that was everything for me.
I remember we talked about that you had because there was so much emotion behind the decision whether to do a delivery or not, especially in states or municipalities that had shutdowns, you were really hesitant that people would see you taking advantage of a crisis or something like that. Do you feel like others have faced that, and had you had some conversation with other florists and farmers, and does that feel like it's maybe evolved a little bit?
Yeah, I think it has. I think as states were closing and mandates were coming out, there was no consistency. So, there was anger if you couldn't, get to do what I was doing. And then the lack of consistency in the regulations, I think, is what heated so much of the emotion.
Yeah.
And also, if you had a retail shop and you relied on, your team to help you execute these things, you couldn't bring in your team. So were you going to handle it yourself? And, my studio, I'm in a townhouse. My studio is 3 levels down in my garage. So I have it here. So I think, and Sarah of Grateful Gardeners is a lawyer full time. And so when the mandate came out, and she's in contact with our governor, weekly. And so we looked at that mandate, and it said in the state of Maryland that non-essential workers could still provide no contact curbside deliveries, but nobody could come to you. So I made the decision whether I was willing to drive all over God's creation to deliver or not do this. And so, my husband's working from home. He's watching the kids. The kids are pretty much self-sufficient. Thank you, YouTube. So
yeah.
So I was able to leave, but it's been interesting. One thing, I was out for 5.5 hours one day delivering. You can't stop anywhere to go to the bathroom, so you have to think about those things. And there's a moral exhaustion that's part of it too, because every house you pull up to, let me get my gloves on, let me put my mask on, who's watching me? Am I doing everything correctly? Let me get out of the van, let me Clorox wipe, make sure that people see me doing this.
Yeah, really exaggerating those movements, right?
I would, because I'm like, who's watching? Because, if somebody showed up at your house, it was a very strange feeling. If you heard your doorbell ring, you're like, why is someone here? So the first day that I did it, and I was gone for 5, and I like couldn't wake up the next day. I was just like physically and emotionally exhausted from it. So it's just different, but I think everybody's experiencing that that moral exhaustion.
Yeah. Kelly, you've described you taking flowers to clients, but you had to receive flowers from farmers. And I know Tom and Sarah are going to talk about this a little bit, but how did you start reaching out initially just to get your supply? Because whatever wholesaler you've been using was probably closed, right?
Right. So I was having things shipped in from Camflor, Resendez, Pajarosa. I got something from Daniel at Petal Pickers down in South Carolina. So I had things that were coming to me, and then I reached out to Grateful Gardeners. I reached out to Plant Masters locally, and I just started buying small quantities as the needs came in. But
so the flowers would either be shipped FedEx from like California or the southern farm, or they would
picking up.
You went and picked up from the farms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No farm has delivered to me, and I think that they would. Two Boots and Hill and Homestead in Baltimore, you know, they have a $200 minimum, and there were sometimes I didn't meet that, so I would drive 45 minutes to the farm and. You know, said your buckets are in the barn, and I would grab them. I never saw her, and I'd be on my way.
So here you are, the wedding and event florist who never was going to do retail.
Never.
And how have you like made that happen on your website and in your social media? Like, how have you turned on the store basically?
Right. So I have a Squarespace store. I thought I was already selling workshops, so I knew that small side of e-commerce. And I thought, I looked into Shopify and whether I needed to embed that into Squarespace, but Squarespace has worked really well. I attached PayPal to it and attached Stripe. So they have multiple ways that they can pay. And, you know, it took a learning curve to figure out, you know, the order form and also things like not putting specific dates, because what was happening is orders were coming in the night before for the next day. And I realized I have to set boundaries, you know?
Right.
Like I realized that they could get orders delivered for a birthday and, you know, just for sympathy, or I'm just thinking of you. They were coming in fast. And there was one night, like 7 orders came in around like 3 or 4, and I had nothing in the cooler that was really fresh. So I ran out to 2 farms and just said, whatever you have, I will buy. Wow. So there's a grace in this moment to have that time to just like stop what you're doing and handle it. But if I was in, you know, the season of weddings and events, that this would not be happening. Right.
How are you charging for the arrangements? What are your products that you're offering?
So my biggest seller is a 4-inch hobnail vase from Accent Decor. Also, I ordered in a lot of vases from Accent Decor. This hobnail vase is $1.79. It's the biggest seller, and it's 10 tulips and 10 ranunculus for $85. A little bit of filler and greenery. The thing that I've had to think differently in regards to events is things that last a little bit longer. Things that aren't. And that's been a big challenge to figure out what lasts longer. But the thing about farm fresh product that these farmers are cutting that day, putting in the cooler, and then they're in your studio, is these flowers, even though that they are ephemeral in a way, they are lasting so much longer than if they're coming from South America or they're coming from the wholesaler and they've been sitting in that wholesaler for 5 days. And you're getting it at the end of its life.
Right.
So, I mean, the tulips have, you know, the fact that this happened in March and tulips were coming on kind of was a blessing. And ranunculus, because those 2 things have really just made so many people happy. And they're sending me pictures a week later that their flowers are still, you know, beautiful on their table.
Great. Hey, I'm just going to jump in for a second and encourage anybody who's on the call, if you have questions for Kelly, please type them in the chat, and that we'll get those to her in a few minutes. Kelly, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I've seen. We haven't even discussed it, but you just launched some kind of national shipping collaboration.
Good.
And maybe you can, do you have it on a website? Maybe we can get it up on the screen.
I do. It's on the floral source under the shop.
Okay, I'll pull that up and you can talk about what this is.
Sure. So what that is the whole point of me starting the floral source was really connecting the design community with growers across the United States. A lot of us who are already sourcing local, we're pretty familiar with our local growing community, but what designers were constantly messaging me about weekly in my event business was, Kelly, you're getting this beautiful product. Like, how do I get that? So I saw that there was a real need to create a platform to connect, designers with where they can get it if they can't get it from their wholesalers, because wholesalers aren't always bringing in American grown product because it's more expensive than imports. So yeah, if you go to the shop and scroll down.
So this is showing up.
Mm-hmm.
How do you pull this off with these photography so quickly? The girl with the porch?
I'm paying her for it, and because all of her business dried up as well. So it's created a little bit of revenue for her as well. So every time I go, I'm not paying her probably enough, but it's what I can afford right now. So click on the ship that. Yeah.
So you just turned this on like yesterday.
2 days ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
wow.
All on her porch. It's right here in Damascus. And she's an incredible friend that just has really supported me, and it's given her purpose as well.
So this is the Farm Box program, and people are just going to buy the program and get what they get. It says right here what you will receive. You want to talk us through that?
Sure. So I'm going to feature this program over the next 10 weeks and feature 5 farms. And these are farms that maybe in the moment are just selling directly to designers, or maybe they're going to pivot and do this long term. But they're farms that designers may not have had an opportunity to get their product. Paja Rosa is like the backbone of my event business. I get their ranunculus, their anemones, their garden roses, spray roses, and incredible branchy fillers throughout the year. They're my go-to farm when I can't get certain products locally. Mm-hmm. And so you have 2 opportunities. You have until this Monday to order for next week. It'll ship on Tuesday, arrive to you Wednesday. And I think it's 77 to 80 stems of product.
Yeah. You see that right here.
And you'll receive a tutorial on processing and flower care, and then also we'll create a centerpiece together. I had a crisis of confidence the night before I launched this, because I was concerned about who my audience was and what people would think.
You mentioned that. You mentioned who this is for, right? Oh, here we go.
Floral designers. And floral enthusiasts, because in this moment we're all still stuck at home, and who I'm hearing from a lot is the everyday consumer and hobbyist that is just wanting to create. They're wanting to have a sense of purpose in their home. They miss having flowers. Maybe they didn't get to plant the things that they wanted to plant, whatever the situation, but they're wanting an opportunity to create. So I have 2 target audiences, the designer to teach them what these farms are growing seasonally that they can use in their businesses. It's like a non-committal way. I think sometimes there's a hesitancy to buy direct from a farm. If you've never been there, you've never seen the product, and you're on a tight margin. So this gives you an opportunity to really explore that farm's products without the stress of what is my client color palette, specific blooms, things like that. So, what I love doing is taking designers to the farms, meeting the farmers, having that full immersion experience. So it was a way for me to create that at home for the design community.
Wow, exciting. And you mentioned the vase. This is like you keep a small inventory
Accent Decor is drop shipping from
Wow.
their houses. So, you can buy one vase and it gets shipped directly to you.
And this is very different too, because most consumers can't get their hands on this product that's normally sold at
Right.
wholesale, right? Or
Right.
there's minimums, like buy a case of a dozen of one type, right?
Accent Decor, up until they just launched this drop ship program, I think a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, they required $100 minimum. So,
okay. Wow. So you're just leveraging your relationships with people you were already sourcing from and coming up with this and saying, hey, I mean, let's both make some money here and get flowers into people's hands.
Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting. Wow. Okay. Let's see. Anything else, Kelly? We see a few questions here. I think I'm going to let Lisa moderate those, and then we want to pivot to Grateful Gardeners, who you also collaborate with.
Yeah, I love them. Any questions I can answer?
Yeah, Lisa, you want to jump in? Yeah, you go
Sorry,
ahead.
I was muted, just chatting away. We have a question from Anika. Would you like to pop in? I've unmuted you if you want to ask your question to Kelly. Sorry.
Sure. I was just curious if how you've managed new shipping costs. I guess it sounds like you weren't doing retail before, so maybe this doesn't quite apply to you, but I'm curious how your shipping costs have changed your prices for your clients.
So I've always shipped in. So that price point has always been worked into the bottom line. I also recently, which is helping with my shipping costs, I became a Cal Flowers member, and that is available for anyone. Cal Flowers is a organization that started just for the growers years and years and years ago, and they've opened up to designers as well. And it secures you with the lowest FedEx rate that you're going to get out there. FedEx does not offer this rate to anyone else anymore. So for example, a quarter box that's about 10 pounds coming from California, there's a $45 to $50 shipping cost on that. So if you maximize your box, if you're only wanting 20 stems, you're still probably going to pay like $30, $40. So maximize your box and just fill it up, because you're going to pay for that box. So really learning what the farms offer that you can use throughout your designs. So like Pajarose right now, I can get pincushion protea, I can get my greenery, I can get my filler, I can get my roses. So I could, if I only wanted to buy from one farm, I could get it from there. The same with Cam Floor. Cam Floor is specifically sold to wholesalers, but right now in this moment, they're allowing temporary accounts, but I think what farms will start to see is that this is an avenue that they should continue. Because
Karen, yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry to mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Karen just posted the Cal Flowers membership link in the chat. Cal Flowers came on board as a sponsor of the Soulflower Summit because they saw that the design community is sort of a growth area for them, and also small farms, which previously hadn't considered shipping. So
yeah, definitely. Harmony Harvest is offering this shipping course, and that's one of the things that they talk about is, if you're going to ship, you get that Cal Flowers account, because otherwise, before I had the Cal Flowers account, and some of the farms will extend their account to you in that shipping rate, but there was one farm that I bought from last year that it was like $400 in shipping, and the product only cost $150.
Forget
it. Got it. I had a moment where I was like, I have no business doing any of this.
Thank you for sharing your lessons learned. Geez.
Yeah. It takes about 30 days to get your Cal Flowers account approved, just because you have to establish a FedEx account and then also apply for the Cal Flowers account, and then they have to merge the two.
Mm-hmm. And so you started this, right when the coronavirus?
No, I started it before that, because they were a sponsor of the Floral Source Retreat in California too.
Oh, right, right. Okay, well, this is exciting, Kelly. Do you think that when we are past the coronavirus and your brides and grooms and couples are all coming back to you and you're going to pivot into crazy wedding mode, that you'll continue any of these features?
You know, that's a question I've been asking myself. I maybe for holidays.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about me versus a retail shop, I don't carry product consistently. I only bring in product that's sold. And so if it's something I can get from a farm, but if it's in the winter, I'm going to have to ship it in. So
that increases the cost then.
Yeah. And so I can't just do an $85 arrangement when the product I'm shipping in has a $200 minimum or, you know, so I think it's going to have to be situational.
Great. Great. Well, listen, you've been so helpful and so really specific in sharing your experiences. I really appreciate that. And we're going to have this video that we can also post so people can come back and watch it and listen to some of Kelly's tips. I kind of think maybe you should introduce our next speakers, Sarah Daken and Tom Precht. Would you like to do that?
I would love to. Hello, my friends.
Okay.
So Sarah Daken and Tom Precht, the husband-wife duo of Grateful in Comus, Maryland. So they are over by Sugarloaf, Maryland or Sugarloaf Mountain for all the local designers here in our community. They are very dear friends of mine that we met at, you guys came, 3 years ago to my America's Flower Week Slow Flowers party that Debra actually was at.
We met that same night. That's funny.
Yeah. And they, you know, Tom is a scientist. Sarah is a lawyer for the police department here in our county. And they just kind of stumbled upon flower farming and super smart, nerdy flower farming.
And you've been able to do some fun collaborations together. I know they've freelanced for you, and you've put on workshops and done photo shoots at their farm, and it sounds like it's a really nice alliance that benefits both of you.
Yeah, I really value the way that they grow. They're experimenting with aquaponics. They're very mindful of the way they grow organically. And, you know, I've learned so much through them just about the environment and growing practices. And I think that's really important as a designer to understand the flowers that you're buying and sourcing, how they're grown, and why it's important to them as a flower farmer. You know, every flower farmer has a story, and theirs is a really, really exciting one. And today is a big day for them because their website launched, which them to another level in selling to the design community.
All right. Well, that was a great introduction. Let's pivot over to Sarah and Tom and welcome them to the virtual meeting. Thank you both so much for saying that you'll partner with Kelly and kind of representing what's happening in Maryland. You want to give us
thank you, Debra.
You want to give us a snapshot of where you're at now with Grateful Gardeners?
Snapshot. That might be hard, but because there's a lot going on. So technically we started the farm in 2018, although that growing season was it was basically like a hobby on steroids. It wasn't really a full-fledged business. It was really like just try and grow whatever we could and see if we could sell anything. And we had a little bit of success and a lot of failures in the field. But 2019 was really the year that it sort of became a full-fledged farm business, and we really pushed hard to try and create new customers and new relationships and sell to different places. And it sort of became the proof of concept that we're now carrying into 2020 that, maybe we can make a full-time living at this flower farming thing. And so kind of that's where we're at right now. The most recent thing that I think is really exciting for us and that actually precipitated me to be able to quit my job, which was like... Oh,
I didn't know that, Tom.
We didn't tell you that?
No, wow.
Okay.
I knew it was a hope.
Yes, well, it's a hope for both of us, but I was the one who actually got to pull the trigger because I was probably, I don't want to, I'm not going to make it a competition about who is more miserable at their job. I shouldn't say that too for her.
Look at her face.
Still working that job. She's still working that job, but I was really miserable in my job. I worked sales for 10 years and you know, yes, it paid the bills, but it just wasn't intellectually satisfying. It was just, and if anybody's ever been in sales, it wears you down. So I was miserable, and I had applied back at the end of 2019 for essentially it's like a grant, but it was really, we were awarded this spot on a cohort for Bethesda Green, which is a nonprofit organization in Bethesda that promotes green businesses. It's an accelerator incubator kind of program that helps small businesses scale that are green in nature and have social impacts as well. So when we applied for that, we went through that whole process, and unfortunately, Sarah, I think at that point was a little dejected about a lot of the rejections we had gotten. We
heard a lot of no's.
We heard a lot of no's about grants. We heard a lot of no's about, nah, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
And so we didn't think we were going to get, I was actually fairly confident because I just felt good about how
I was sure we weren't going to get it.
She was sure.
And I'm sure it's because I wrote you a letter of recommendation, right, Tom?
Oh, no, actually, that sealed the deal.
That was the tipping point.
The Debra Prinzing.
I'm just thrilled for you.
Yeah, so we were awarded this spot, and that's what triggered me to be able to quit my job and focus full time on that, and also on the farm and numerous other things. So that's kind of where we're at. And I mean, that's up until this point, but there's so much more going on currently.
Yeah.
Well, now just quickly tell people what kind of acreage you have, and you know how your farm is set up.
So we live on just an acre of land.
Wow.
We have a micro farm of micro farms. We are inching close to eating up almost every available sunny spot in the space. But I would say maybe we're growing on about a quarter of that space at this point. We've been pretty crafty about making sure we're tight plant spacing and we're rotating crops, and we're,
cutting down trees.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of that, but just turning beds over, and being, clear about planning out crops so that when one is done, we're flipping that bed and we're putting something else in there. So it's a lot of planning. It's a heavy lift. We spend most of January literally sitting and looking at calendars and getting out the calculator and figuring out plant spacing. And a lot of people don't know that, but there's a lot of prep that goes into, especially on a small space, because you don't have the luxury of letting something, for instance, just reseed itself and say, oh, I'll just see what will happen. I don't have that kind of land to take that kind of risk.
Sure.
I need to know that it's going to be productive. So that's what we're growing on. We've really ramped up this year. Again, each year we've gotten so much bigger, and it's been a short period of time. But when I think about where we were our first year and where we are now and how much is literally in the ground ready to bloom in this moment, it's pretty alarming how much we've taken on.
Perennials. So, we focused heavily on perennials, obviously, because as flower farmers, those are a great investment long term. Peonies and you can't go wrong with peonies.
So had you expected for 2020 that most of your sales would be florist direct? I know you were doing a little program with the local Whole Foods, but what had you expected the year to look like, and now how have you had to pivot?
So it's really interesting because when we started with Bethesda Green, Bethesda Green is a program which essentially is focused on green businesses, but not specific to agriculture, and definitely not, mostly just focused on business, right? Which is the one thing that is kind of like the part, especially when it comes to money and knowing all of that. But honestly, what it did is it just got us, we had to hunker down and get serious. And one of the things that we decided we were going to go all in, which is why Tom left his job, because one of us needed to really be able to pivot toward this business, like really give it its full attention.
Right.
And so, they kept emphasizing to us that we have to focus on what is our target market, who are the customers that we are trying to go after. And we immediately just, decided together that we really wanted to work with floral designers. That was something that we could do. We could utilize a small space and grow a lot of unique and novel blooms that florists and designers cannot get at a wholesaler, and that are going to bring top dollar for revenue purposes. So that's been our goal. Like, we're just going to go headfirst into creating these designer relationships. I love it for the artistic piece of it, because I really appreciate design, and I got to work with Kelly on the other end of this, right? So I've been able to see firsthand what it means to actually put together a wedding. And
It's hard.
It's hard.
We've got a lot of people nodding today. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mad respect to
wow.
those wedding designers.
Yeah. We did that, and I was like, yeah, we're not doing that again.
No.
You don't want to be the farmer florist, huh?
No,
you can take our flowers and do that, but we'll stay behind the scenes.
But appreciating, going in and working with designers, like, it just gives this. I mean, we worked with flower farmers too, but it was a huge perspective shift, right?
Yeah.
To know how hard it was to source.
Yeah.
So when we started really digging in with Bethesda Green, we started interviewing our target audience and our target customers, asking for people, can we talk to you? Can we come and interview? We want to know, what are your pain points? What are the things that are really hard for you in sourcing local product? And it was not surprising necessarily, but fascinating that the top 2 answers over and over and over again, and we interviewed a lot of people, was it's not convenient to order and it needs to be delivered. That was it. I mean, they weren't so keen about organic, and we were like, well, we'll work on that later if we can. But we decided that we were going to have to, if this was our target audience, we were going to have to really push to figure out how our business model can work with that group of people. So we decided to take on delivery this year. The Tom's isn't working. We can figure out a couple of days a week when we're willing to deliver our product and come up with a plan for that. And then we decided our crop plan was also planned with that in mind. What are the high-end blooms and blooms that designers are interested in? I'm not just going to grow a field of zinnias.
Yeah.
They're not going to want that.
Yeah.
So those 2 things were already happening, and we were like, the website's coming, we're developing these relationships, we're doing great, and then there's a pandemic.
Right. And so the pause button affecting wedding and event designers is obviously has a ripple effect with you.
We thought, literally, I was like, oh, well, I guess we're just going to be donating all of our flowers this year. Like, we might as well forget it. We're just going to incur the debt. We're going to no revenue. That was really
like a wash. Like, you kind of, you catastrophize a little bit, and you're like, the year's gone.
Yeah. I don't think you were alone. I think a lot of people,
some farms that closed.
Right.
And we're like, I mean, that's tragic. To think, even some that have been around a long time. I mean, it breaks your heart as a farmer to know that this is breaking the backs of some long-standing farms.
And it's not as though we could have said, well, we'll just put those flowers on hold. I mean, I had an entire, a quarter of our field filled with, hardy annuals that were going to come up, whether or not someone was buying them or not.
Yeah.
So I was like trying to figure out, and it also in the very beginning of this feeling, not that I don't feel this now, but also very much charitable. Like, if I can't sell them and make any revenue, then I'm going to donate them. I'm going to figure out a way to get flowers in people's hands, because there's a lot of people hurting right now. And that probably would have been bad for business, but it would have been a heartwarming thing to continue doing. Sure. But obviously that shift occurred because now it was pretty clear within a couple of weeks that we were going to be able to actually sell things, which was a huge surprise.
So what caused that? Was that the no contact delivery rule, or was it that florists started calling you, or a little bit of both?
Yeah. So once you start getting the guidance from the government, the local government, that we were considered an essential business as agriculture. They didn't make a distinction between flowers and food. We just took that as, yep, we're okay. But again, just with delivery, the same thing that Kelly did, which is you just put the buckets out there and they pick up the buckets and they give us new buckets, and there's really zero contact. And you're wearing masks if you need to. But it really was like, customers from last year, florists specifically Little Acre down in DC, and Kelly obviously, and some other designers we worked with, saying, hey, I've still got some orders coming in. We're still got orders for the bouquets. Little Acre Flowers, they're like, we've never been busier. And I'm like, okay, I guess if you're just working out that system of how you're getting it into the hands of the customer, great. So I think we've made 4 or 5 deliveries alone to them, and they're always asking. So the demand, it's like it pretty much just capitalist economy, just the demand appears and you supply, and that's where we were at. And now we're like, okay, let's roll with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what it would have looked like if this hadn't happened, but we're not really looking back on that. It's sort of like, okay, well, this is where we are.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, and this happens every year, Mother's Day, it's like I literally have a field ready to butt up and burst, and probably won't have very much product for Mother's Day. Ironically enough, I'll have some, and it's already spoken for.
You mean like certain things don't bloom until after
I mean, like
Mother's
today,
Day.
I just walked the field before I came in here. I'm like, oh, look at the nigella are all budding up, but
maybe not.
Yeah. So it's that's a little frustrating, because I think if we had the product in the inventory, I'd be able to sell all of it right now.
Wow.
For Mother's Day.
Somebody has asked in the chat box, can you share some of the niche or niche flowers examples that you are growing that you don't think the wholesalers are really offering? Was the nigella one of them?
Well, I was asking, and what I really have been trying to do is I source all the flowers for the farm pretty much. I mean, and I am talking constantly to designers. I would put out on social media polls on Instagram. Hey designers, do you like this flower or this flower? Should I grow this one or this one? Just throwing it out there. We don't have a huge following, but it was enough information for me to collect some data on the things that they liked, colors that they liked, palettes that worked, didn't work. And so I was taking all that information. This was back even in the late fall, and thinking, okay, I think I need to make a shift here, and this year I'm already starting to place orders for next year. So you've got to really be ahead of it. And last year I kind of was late in the game to a certain extent, but I was lucky to be able to source most of what I wanted. So there's that. So yes, if there's specifically, I would say Lysianthus, great seller. And it's not really unique per se, but it's always going to sell and it's going to last a long time. Designers love it. I don't think I'll ever have a problem selling a stem. Nigella, stock.
In terms of what wholesalers want, it's definitely like we did small batches of things like fritillaria, like things that are really beautiful and unique, but you won't find them at the wholesaler. So I'm trying to think of some other ones.
Well, I feel like maybe we should pivot to your website and show what your brand new website looks like, because you've got an amazing photo library on there of what you're growing.
We do.
Maybe I've got it. Yeah. Can you get it up, Tom?
I can. I got it right here. So I'll share
all right. So this is something that's been in the works for how long? And what did you have before?
In terms of a site, you mean?
Yeah, you had a website last year, right?
Well,
I had a Squarespace. I started Squarespace, and I was like most people, like, I'm sure I can figure it out.
It's like, I could totally do this. We're not spending the money to do this.
I mean, it's a lot of money to hire a web designer.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure about revenue, and so I was like, I'm sure I can figure this out. Like, I had a ton of time, right?
Right. On top of the full-time job, plus the side hustle, plus kids.
Yes, I was still working full-time, still all the kids, all the dogs, all the farm. Yeah, sure, squeeze in web design from those awesome hours of like 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. No, wasn't happening. I mean, I said I would, and then Sarah quickly learned I wasn't going to be able to.
Well, I just thought that, there's, and this also was the help of Bethesda Green. There's certain things that are worth making an investment in. And I really felt like, because the message we were getting from designers was that we were going to have a functional e-commerce section of our website, that would be really a good thing to have. So we were really dedicated to figuring that out. That it was going to be worth it to hire someone to help us do this. I'm going to spend the money on the front end and get it done right. I'm not going to know how to do this, and Tom could figure it out, but it would take 6 months, and we don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
So the Our Blooms tab, is that where people can come find the product?
Yeah.
Yes. So
it's.
Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I mean, so basically, and you can see it here. E-commerce is coming next week. So we actually got input from Kelly on this and a few other people, but Kelly was really critical, and we should have brought her in much sooner on the e-commerce thing, just because the designers who were wanting to really use this aspect. Other people can, but designers especially, we really should have had her input. And so we kind of went down a path, and then she kind of came in and said, you really should change it and come this way. And we were like, well, might be a delay on the e-commerce stuff.
That's all right. We'll all come back and look at it.
Yeah.
But
So we're just sort of saying it's coming next week, and then but this sort of gives you a taste of like what we will be growing this season or have been growing, and then of course this sort of will definitely tantalize people. You know, I mean, you start to see it gets pretty extensive, and you know, in everything that we're doing. There's no names or anything now. It's really a very basic sort of just. Here's the picture of it. You know, most people will recognize, you know, Celosia and anemones.
Yeah.
But I wanted it to be specific. So for instance, I went back through, and this was something I did in January. I went back through my inventory, my invoices, and I decided to actually make an Excel spreadsheet of every single variety, and not just the type of flower, but the color.
Mm-hmm.
What did I order? What's going to come up in the field this year? So that people could actually see it, because that was something also that designers were saying to us over and over. We're visual people.
Mm-hmm.
We like to see pictures. Don't just tell us what it is. Show us either pictures in the field or pictures of what it should look like, so we have expectations about that for our palette purposes. So I listened to that and thought, you know,
this is impressive. I mean, it's like mind-boggling. There are hundreds and hundreds of photos in this gallery, and it looks like you were able to get photos from like the seed company or the bulb company or
they're not from the field, and we knew we would be able to do that because until the season ended, we weren't going to be able to collect our own photo album. But what we decided to do is to go ahead and when we're ready to update the website with the availability, we're going to take pictures in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to post them on Instagram and give people a preview. You're going to find a picture of what this looks like on the website. Here's what it looks like while it's growing in our field, so that it's a more accurate depiction of that. But and to be honest with you, there's even some things that aren't currently on here that we've added.
Finished.
You know, so but we wanted to at least get this up so that people could have a sense of the kinds of things that they might be able to source from us.
I just want to make sure that people know that it's gratefulgardeners.co, not com. Somebody was having
that domain was already taken, unfortunately. So.
That's okay. We'll put the link back up in the chat.
And if you Google search Grateful Gardeners, it'll come up first.
Yeah. So it's Grateful Gardeners. .co. Okay, great. Wow, you guys have done a lot. This is stunning, and
this is probably one of the more impressive parts.
This is my favorite part right here.
This is basically, you know, the featured they're designers, but they're the design specifically, you know. And
can you go up and show what that tab is? Is that
is right here at the top? It's the featured design.
Okay.
So one of the things that we really wanted to do, is because I just so appreciate the floral art that's created by designers.
Beautiful art.
All of these flowers in these pictures, not every single bloom is from our farm, but in every single one of these pictures, I'm giving credit to the designer, and also there's at least some of our flowers in every single picture.
That's beautiful.
That you can see.
And then each design actually links to that person's website as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're giving that kind of, you know, credit to.
That's awesome.
Drive people to their sites and give them some more press and
right.
I mean, this is part of what we have wanted to do all along in terms of creating collaboration with and you know, if we're all doing well, we all succeed. Mm-hmm. And so we have just felt from the very beginning that we're going to do everything we can to support this. I mean, why wouldn't you look at this? I mean, this is just.
I think it's a really great way to educate customers about maybe florists, I guess I'm trying to say, like florists who haven't really taken the leap buying direct from a farmer, or who have a relationship with a local farmer. This maybe gives them confidence that, like, you know, professional flower shops and florists are doing beautiful designs with these stems.
Yeah, and it's a little different, right? It's a little different look than your FTD ordering, you know, and this is sort of what local really can look like. And I think sometimes people don't recognize just the quality of the blooms and just the diversity that you can get local and seasonal. So, you know, we've definitely pushed that, and we love this section, and it's going to be a living, breathing section of our website, you know, because each time we have a designer who would like to have our flowers featured in some way, we are more than happy to share and support them.
That's wonderful. Oh, and I see you have a good explanation of what Slow Flowers is, what local flowers are about. I just encourage people to spend time poking around here, and I would be, maybe we can move on to just a couple more questions, and then we were going to do like about a 10-minute breakout groups to talk about Mother's Day. So I'm looking in the group chat to see if there's any other questions. I want you to talk a little bit about what you're doing for Mother's Day with your special like product offerings, because I think that's really fun, and you're going to have a few gifts for us to put into our drawing. So
yeah. Okay, so this was kind of a fun idea. So knowing that we were headed into Mother's Day, knowing that it was looking like everyone was at home, and we had a lot of people telling us and giving us indications that they would like to be able to go outside. Nobody was told they couldn't leave their house, and they couldn't go in their yard. So we decided that it would be a really cool thing that if we didn't have cut flowers in massive production yet, which we did not, we had all the early spring stuff, of course, and still do, but it's not in huge quantities. Wouldn't it be fun to create some sort of way for people to gift a cutting garden seed kit to each other during this moment? It could also be a Mother's Day gift, but it could also be a birthday gift. It was sort of a universal way to share flowers. And it was also a way for us to create an additional revenue source that did not include cut flowers, which we were low in quantity. So we put together a seed kit. We do seeding by soil blocks. So
this is great.
Tom did the whole directions, and our little signature Grateful Gardeners mason jars that we started with from the very beginning, which we still love. And we just did cosmos, zinnias, and sunflowers because they're easy to germinate.
95% germination.
I mean, people aren't really going to be able to really screw it up that bad, hopefully. And the soil blocks are already prepared, so really it's just a method of them just putting the seeds in those blocks and trying to keep them somewhat moist and warm for germination, and then be able to get them outside, and have their own cutting gardens. So it's been well received. We've had several orders. We're able to ship them. And I don't see really any reason until we get probably late in the summer, when growing flowers that late's not probably going to work seasonally, why we would end this. It's not currently up on the website with a direct link to be able to order them, but that's coming with next week's launch of the e-commerce.
Yeah.
So
the merch.
And merch. Yes, there's that word, Deborah.
We won't use the other word. Merch.
Well, before you go on, I just want to ask you, what are you charging for this?
$35.
Okay, did you say that? I'm sorry, I was getting distracted by chat.
Yeah,
that's one, and you can ship this nationally.
We can ship it nationally. Now, I will tell you, the caveat is that the shipping's not included in that fee.
Sure.
And when we, one customer wanted to have us ship it to California, and it was going to be $18 to ship, like half the cost of the box itself.
Yeah.
Decided not to do that. So we haven't actually gotten our feet into the ship world yet. That's a whole nother animal, which probably is down the road.
Yeah.
But it could be an impediment to people wanting to have it shipped long distances, but we're also delivering them locally.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something to keep your name out there in the marketplace for the time when your flowers aren't quite, at full peak. So I love it.
And here's what's fun, Deborah. We're already getting pictures from people who purchase them on how their seeds are germinating.
That's great.
She sent me photos and said, "Here, look what's happening. Oh my gosh, what is this?" And she said, "Was that mold?" And Tom said, "No, those are root hairs. That's really good."
That's a good thing.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, listen, I've been having little chats with the team, and we're feeling like this meeting today has been so great that we're going to just let people ask questions and then wrap it up and skip the Zoom rooms, if that's all right. Sure. Let's see, Yanni just said, could these be shipped 3 to 5 days to save on freight cost?
Yeah.
I guess, Yanni, we don't even really know how that works. I mean, we're just kind of like, let's look up on USPS how much it would cost.
We just did some estimators.
Okay.
And I think it depends on the actual weight of the box. Obviously, that's a factor. So I think we could get the cost down a little bit, and then maybe be okay, like maybe to $10.
Any shipping suggestions that anyone has?
It's not something
we're open to that. Feel free to send us a message. We'd love to know.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Anything else that I didn't ask you that you want to share with people?
2 things. I would be remiss if we didn't say this, but the website was done by Ashley Hooker of Hookberry. And this is a reference from Kelly. Kelly gave us this reference, and Ashley has been phenomenal.
Amazing.
She's so talented and so great to work with.
Hookberry.com.
She really knows what her doing. She's got a great style. And now she has a lot of experience, well, at least more experience with designers and flower farmers in terms of making sites that are catered to those types of businesses.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The second thing is, I would be also remiss, and I have to give a shout out to my mother and my father.
Yes, and they're on the call.
They're here.
Their farm is Rocky Mountain Blooms.
Yeah.
And, you know, my mom has been growing dahlias for 25 years or something, just an insane long amount of time. And she's always been so supportive and encouraged us to do these things. And I'm just so glad that we're finally able to sort of honor her passion and the thing that she's always been into.
Hey, Diana, you want to jump in and tell us the real backstory?
Well, first of all, when Tom was a young man in his teens, and I was digging the dahlias or planting the dahlias or cleaning the dahlias, he couldn't have been less interested. So it's kind of interesting now that he's doing dahlia cuttings and planting dahlias and cleaning dahlias. And Sarah is a gift to me. She's so talented and creative, and they are a dynamo couple. I can't be more proud of them.
That's so neat. And tell us briefly about your farm and what you're growing.
Well, we're on 3 acres in Loveland, Colorado. And right now, 2 weeks ago, we had 12 inches of snow and 11 degrees. Gardening in Colorado is an experience I don't wish on anyone, to be honest. You go from, I call it sprinter here because we don't really have a spring and we still sort of have winter. So I've renamed it.
Sprinter.
We have about 5 weeks of spring. It's 74 here today, if you can imagine. Right now. So
that snow all melted then.
Yeah, some of the tulips were happy with the 12 inches. We got some moisture, but I have tulips that are still in bud stage. I still have some daffodils that haven't bloomed. My ranunculus and anemones are in the hoop house trying to fight the heat because they don't really like that. So they're stunted to a certain extent. I should have that by the end of the month. I'm really experimenting with sweet peas.
Mm-hmm.
Our cool climate is conducive to that crop.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing I did a little Instagram video, Terry and I did, on the cordon method of trellising sweet peas.
Oh, great. Okay, we'll try. And what's your Instagram?
I think it's Rocky MTN Blooms.
Okay, great. Yeah. We'll try to follow up with that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Hey, I'm so glad that you planted that seed with that reluctant teenage boy.
It took 20 years to germinate.
Well, I thought it was great that Lisa just messaged me and said it looks like overstuffed bookcases run in the family. but so do dogs in the background.
Yes, dogs too.
Really
dogs in the background.
By the way, can I just add something really funny right now? You all can't see it, but sitting next to the desk is Tom's homemade. Let's just show everyone, okay? Because this is what
flower farming's all about.
Yeah, so that's compost tea.
I'm brewing compost tea in my office.
And the dog just started drinking it.
Oh. All right, we're just getting all the behind the scenes here today. I love it.
It all looks so polished, but trust me, behind the scenes, not so much.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Thank you both so much, Sarah and Tom, and
thank
you for having us.
And thank you, Kelly Shore, if you're still on the line. Listen, this has been so great. I'm gonna because we're going late, I'm gonna just make an executive decision that we're gonna skip the breakouts, and I apologize for that. Maybe next week. But a few announcements before we wrap up. First of all, we'll send out the link to the video of today's presentation probably Tuesday with the announcement, so you can go back and watch it. I want to let you know that next week our special guest will be Rita Jo Schultz from Alaska Perfect Peony, and Rita Jo is a longtime Soulflowers member, but she also is the chair of Certified American Grown. And that's pretty cool because she can kind of give us a snapshot of what's happening nationally with some of the lobbying and legislation and policy work. So she was on a call earlier, but she had to jump off. So we'll welcome her next week. Last week we had several giveaways, and Laura Tibbetts of Midcoast Blooms and Whitney Munsey of Emerald Design both were chosen in the drawing to receive the botanical watercolor prints from Lorene Edwards Faulkner. And so congrats to them. Yanni Levenbach of Flowers Without Borders won a Slow Flowers t-shirt. That's on its way to you, Yanni, in the mail. And Misty Vanderweel of All Dahlia'd Up Flower Farm was selected to receive a Corona branch and stem pruner. So those are coming out. And today we have some really cool things. First, I have one more. I was telling everybody I'm cleaning out my my garage. This is my last Corona clipper, so someone will get that. We have another Slow Flower Society t-shirt. And then Sarah and Tom have donated 2 gifts, and one of course is the Cutting Garden kit that they'll mail to you. And we'll tell you, Sarah and Tom, you can do the 3 days so you can pay less on the shipping. Right?
Okay.
We'll find the cheapest way to do it.
And then tell us about the other giveaway that you've offered to share.
Okay, so we are going to give away 3 Cafe Olay dahlia tubers to
That's
some lucky person.
Great.
We are really into dahlias. We didn't mention this, but if somebody asked about, specialty crop, right?
That's one of them.
This year, I think we're going to probably have about 2,000 to 2,500 dahlias.
Great.
Not necessarily different varieties, but the sheer number in the ground.
That has been ramped up. Yeah. We've been working on cuttings, rooted cuttings, things like that. So, we could talk offline with anyone who wants to know anything about that, but we've found it to be very profitable and a great way to attract designers.
And
absolutely.
In partnership with Rocky Mountain Blooms, we're going to probably venture into the tuber selling aspect of this because they sell out everywhere. So.
Oh wow! Another family spinoff with East Coast, West Coast. That's exciting.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, good. Well, we'll follow up on that.
Cool.
Thank you. And Kelly Shore has a giveaway too. Kelly, can we turn on her mic so Kelly can tell everybody what she's going to donate?
Hi, yes. So I would love to have one of the Pajarosa floral boxes shipped direct to one of the members.
Wow.
For next week or the following week.
Well,
but I want to get flowers in someone's hands to just get the experience. And it's not a farm that maybe everybody's had an opportunity to experience, whether you're a flower farmer or hobbyist, gardener, or designer.
Wow, Kelly, thank you so much. That's awesome. And we're probably going to do the drawing and announce it on Monday. So maybe it would be for the following week.
I have to get the orders in by no later than Tuesday morning. So you can for next week.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. This has been so awesome. What a great conversation with, from the florist perspective, the farmer's perspective, and some great questions. And I guess before I say goodbye, I will just mention that next week we're going to go back to our original time slot of 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. So thanks for working with us. We're going to try to stick to that unless we have a conflict. And we'll hear from Rita Jo, and then I promise we'll do breakout rooms next week. I hope. Okay. Thank you all so much. It's been a wonderful morning. So encouraging.